Welcome to session 3 of the FCSI BYO CEU experience. We're excited to kick off this session today with a lunch and learn featuring rapid cook ovens. Before we jump into it, a couple housekeeping items. This session will be recorded. All attendees are in listen only mode. We'll hold a Q&A at the end of the presentation. Please post your questions in the Q&A feature. This session qualifies for 1.5 CEUs. Upon entering the Zoom session, you are asked to enter your name. This will allow us to track your participation. We will submit to FCSI to ensure you receive your CEUs, and we'll give everyone a couple minutes to make sure your name is entered correctly before we capture attendance. So let's jump on over to the PRNW Test Kitchen in Georgetown, Washington, where we have Chef Patrick Simon, Corporate Regional Chef for Wellbuilt, and a recipient of the 2020 American Culinary Federation President's Award for Leadership. Patrick was also the 2012 ACF Chef of the Year for the Las Vegas chapter. Joining Patrick, we have Deb Fryer coming to us from Tampa, Florida. Deb is the field marketing manager for CONVECTION and MERRYCHEF and is the liaison between the US region and factories in the UK and Germany. Deb leads the US sales and marketing strategy for these two brands. The two of them will speak to us from opposite ends of the country. Over to you guys.
You're on mute, Deb. Nope.
Deb, I think we're having a little technical difficulties there, so I think you're still on mute.
I think I'm good now. Can you hear me?
You can.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
All right, hold on. I apologize. For some reason I am on. Here we go. Okay, sorry about that. I was on minimize screen and I got confused. There you go. You should be able to see it now.
No, we still can't see it.
Yeah, Deb, I could see you.
Can you see my screen?
Sure can. Go ahead.
Now we can.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thanks everyone for your patience while I got booted up there. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining our training on high-speed or rapid cook ovens. I appreciate it. I am lucky enough to have Chef Patrick, and Chef Patrick, congratulations on your awards. That's fantastic. So I'm going to be picking on him a little bit during the presentation to provide that all-important culinary perspective. So what we're going to do over the next little while is really review a couple of things about speed oven or rapid cook technology. The first is, what the heck is even a speed oven, and what's its purpose, what's its application, why are people starting to adopt the technology? Secondly, what kind of customers use speed ovens? That will obviously help when you're thinking about all of your multiple projects you're working on, where a speed oven might make the most sense. And then importantly, how to choose the right model for your customers. There's actually a pretty big difference across speed ovens in terms of how quickly they can cook, how good they are at browning. And so really understanding that detail will help when you're choosing the right model. And we'll talk a lot about specification criteria and avoiding those common mistakes that we often see. All right, so let's jump in. What is a speed oven? It's simply a countertop appliance, and it uses 2 or more heating technologies with the main goal to cook faster than conventional equipment. The big benefit is most are plug and play. Literally, you can take it out of the box, plug it in, and get rolling immediately. And are UL listed ventless with catalytic technology. So that allows you to use it virtually anywhere without the need for a sealing hood or an integrated hood. So what are those 4 technologies we talked about? The first is convection. We're all familiar with convection with our convection ovens, and that provides heated, fan circulated airflow. And the reason you use convection is not only for heating, but also it's great at crisping and browning. Also impingement, same thing, very good at crisping and browning. And really what that is focused high velocity hot air. The third technology we see in speed ovens is radiant. That's where the electromagnetic waves heat the food surface. And when we talk about radiant, we're going to go into this in more detail in a little bit. It works very well on kind of flatter pieces of food, such as pizza. And then finally, microwave. And we all know microwave causes molecules to vibrate, and that increases and causes heating. And it works especially well with waters, fats, and sugars. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about what a speed oven is, what are some of the benefits? And based on the name, it's really all about increasing speed. We're actually seeing, as part of COVID, that rapid cook and speed oven technology is really starting to accelerate because of that ability to drive speed. So why is that important? First of all, more people are going through the drive-through, so that ability to have a piece of equipment that will heat up, brown your foods faster than a griddle or a convection oven is really, really important today, as well as operators that are maybe working at 25, 30, 50% capacity. You want to be able to turn those tables faster to try to get back to kind of your normal levels of revenue. And importantly, it reduces wait times. In fact, MERRYCHEF, I'll give a little shout out, has recently won a major coffee shop business as the sole SPEC. And it's because MERRYCHEF was able to reduce those wait times, reduce the queue. And as we all know, if you can shorten your queue, that is money, that's direct incremental revenue and direct incremental profit. Secondly, it can drive new revenue streams. And I like to use the saying nook and cranny revenue, because literally any place you can find a 24-inch linear space, you can put in a small under-counter freezer or refrigerator, put a speed oven on top, and you can immediately start driving revenue from that very, very small footprint. We talked about the fact that it's plug and play, so you don't need a drain, you don't need anything really special other than the electricity, obviously, the fact that it's ventless, the fact that it's very small. So this is a great opportunity for bars and bars that maybe weren't serving food before. Move a couple of bottles of Jack Daniels out of the way, put in a speed oven, and now they're up and running with a brand new food program. The other great thing is because it's icon based, and what I mean by that, and Chef Patrick, I'm sure will show us in a minute, is that there's pictures of the items that you want to cook on the control panel. So it's very easy for someone who doesn't have culinary training to recognize, oh, there's the grilled cheese, there's the bacon, there's the cinnamon rolls. They press the button, and the great news is that appliance is going to execute that profile exactly the same, no matter who is running that piece of equipment. As long as they push the button, they can recognize the food, they're good to go, high consistency. Third benefit is it helps reduce the labor costs. As we talked about, culinary skills are not required when you're operating a speed oven or a rapid cook oven. So that may enable you to have fewer employees in the kitchen, or potentially maybe lower wage employees. And we talked about the icons make it very easy not only to operate, but also very easy to train new employees. The fourth benefit is reducing investment. What I'll show you in a few slides is this really is a multi-purpose appliance. So you are able to turn out a lot of different types of menu items, and Chef Patrick will show you that at the end of the discussion. And also it's a very small footprint. So theoretically, your designs could be a little bit smaller, maybe have fewer pieces of equipment. You already don't need the hood, so there's savings there. But a way to help reduce that investment, which we know with people coming out of COVID and starting businesses will be important. And then finally, minimizing waste. And a big piece of that is because you're cooking things in smaller batches. So you're not putting in 5 sheet pans into your convection oven, but you're making things either on demand, or you're making smaller batches and holding those, and then making new batches very quickly as you need them. The other thing that's really important is guaranteed consistency. And again, because of that icon-based feature, it's very, regardless of who's operating the oven, maybe it's a new employee that just started a week or two ago, they're going to have guaranteed consistency. When you compare that to, for example, a griddle, where that person needs to clean the griddle, they need to turn the food at the right time, the griddle needs to be up at temperature when they are putting new menu items on it. There's a lot of inconsistency that can happen with those traditional pieces of equipment, but with speed ovens, you really get that consistency as a big benefit. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what customers and segments are using the application. And here I'm going to tap into Chef Patrick's knowledge because he's out there every day talking to customers. One of the big ones, of course, are the QSRs. If any of you have visited a Subway recently, and a lot of times you can see their equipment, they're using speed ovens to toast their sandwiches. Another one where we're seeing a ton of growth is in the C-store segment. And Chef Patrick, I would love for you to share what are some of the menu items you're seeing C-stores make with speed ovens?
Thank you, Deb. Pretty much starting with pizza, which is going to be really popular, breakfast sandwiches, tornadoes, all different types of items that you would traditionally think that would go into a fryer or into a pizza oven or convection oven. Those are the types of items that we're seeing most often, along with some breakfast sandwiches, burritos, all of those things that really you could utilize a high-speed oven to replace a lot of our smaller appliances. And I know you're going to go into that a little bit later on down inside the PowerPoint, but the thought process is really just being able to replace those small tabletop appliances like a microwave, toaster, panini press. Those types of items can go away, but what we're seeing right now with the technology that's out there is that the large corporations and the large chains that are out there, they're really seeing this as the wave of the future, and they're kind of jumping on board as we speak, as we go.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing those examples. I appreciate it. Another major area we're seeing is grocery retail. Excuse me. Whether they're doing on demand, they're heating up chicken wings a la carte, they're making toasted sandwiches. We're seeing some growth in that segment as well. Health clubs, a lot of them have cafes. So it's a great way, again, for someone just completing their workout to, in a very short period of time, get a sandwich or soup to their specifications and out the door on their way. Coffee shops, this is no surprise, right? And in fact, we are seeing very, very strong success with coffee shops once they see how much more quickly they can produce their food, or maybe even add new items to the menu that they thought that they wouldn't have the talent or the equipment to do, is really low-hanging fruit we're seeing in the United States as well as around the globe. And then all kinds of restaurants. You'll see here we have a couple of pizza restaurants. Now they're not using the speed ovens for pizza, but they're using it for most of the other things on their menu. So a lot of the appetizers as well as the hot desserts. And we're seeing this all the way from casual dining to fine dining. And then finally, we see a lot of it in hospitality. And this is a great example for the nook and cranny revenue, where in the bar area, they can put a speed oven and then they can serve appetizers out of that speed oven, or in the morning, they can serve a breakfast program out of that speed oven. So in a very small amount of space, they're able to drive additional revenue.
Deb, if I could interject there for a moment. Also, too, the folks that, your clients as hospitals as well, too, is a big segment of utilizing the high-speed technology, because obviously the cafeterias close at certain times and they have patients that are coming in throughout the day and night, and they still have to be able to provide a hot meal for those folks. So to be able to have and be able to utilize the technology of a high-speed oven to be able to produce moods for patients and for some of the staff that's on board, I think is very important. So you're going to see that moving forward a lot more in healthcare also, being able to produce food quickly, but still maintaining the quality and integrity of the product.
Great example. Thank you, Patrick. So let's dig a little bit deeper into those different heating technologies, because there is a little bit of a linear equation between the types of technology and how much more speed you're going to gain. So if you're starting out with two heating technologies, so that's generally going to be convection And with either impingement or microwave, you're going to see about a 2 to 5 times faster production than you will with conventional equipment. And by conventional equipment, we're talking about ovens, griddles, things like that. If you move to 3 technologies, you're going to get a nice bump in speed. In this case, kind of the middle tier is convection, impingement, and infrared. If you see speed ovens out there with those 3 technologies, you can expect between a 10 and 15 time increase in speed over conventional. And if you look at convection, impingement, and microwave, that's going to give you your absolute fastest cook times. So in that case, you're going to see about 10 to 20 times faster than conventional cooking. And as Patrick alluded to a minute ago, depending on throughput, a speed oven can replace a lot of different pieces of equipment. And this is really important because some of these items, the menu may only need, for example, a microwave or a salamander for 1 or 2 things. You could potentially remove those, put a speed oven in, and that speed oven can take on a lot more items on their menu, and it helps reduce the investment and the footprint for that customer. Patrick, do you have any other examples of where a speed oven might be a benefit over some of these other pieces of equipment?
Thank you, Deb. The question for me always is when I have clients that reach out or customers for that matter, and they ask who could really utilize high-speed oven technology, the question is who could use it, it's who can't use it. So I've seen anything from a pizzeria to a country club to a bakery. I mean, you name it, depending upon, it's all menu driven. So when you're out there working with your clients, you definitely want to be able to answer and ask the right questions and find out exactly what the chef or the restaurateur is planning on to have on their menu. So they may not need, to utilize the 3 different technologies. They might be able to utilize 2. So if they want to do, for example, in a bakery, they might want to be able to cook a half sheet pan full of cinnamon rolls throughout the day. And they really just need it to be, 3 or 4 times faster. And so instead of having the item go out in 25 minutes or a half hour, if they could reduce that down to about 6 to 8 minutes, that would be very beneficial to their business. So pretty much everybody that's out there could utilize the technology, especially right now with the cost of hood systems and the Ansel systems that are out there. Being UL rated ventless is going to be a great benefit to any hotel, restaurant, QSR, chain, so on and so forth.
Good, thank you, Patrick. What this slide does is it gives you an overview of the category players. And we start out with the MERRYCHEF line on the left. And these are really rated in terms of the size of the footprint and the cost, the net price to the customer. So the upper left hand is our E1S, one of our smaller footprints and our opening price point. Then we have the E2S, the E3, E5 as the third one. And then we have our E4, E4S below that. And then based on the major players, you can see which units are aligned with those different platforms that we have. And the reason this is important is as you're looking for brands to put into your designs, if you choose a brand that does have a full breadth of equipment, it's going to make your lives a little bit easier because you won't have to do that research to figure out if Pratica does have the equivalent of an E2S, for example, or the equivalent of a Turbo Chef soda, or does Electrolux carry an equivalent of what Subway has, which is the E4S. So we thought this might just be a good cheat sheet to be able to compare some of the players in the United States. Patrick, anything to add here?
Yeah, really what it comes down to, Deb, and for everybody out there is just finding out exactly the space requirements that are out there, and then also too what they have as far as power is concerned. Electricity is going to come into play because a lot of folks think that even though it's a plug and play version that they don't need a 220 line. They're looking more at 110 or 120 line. So I think when you're out there talking to your clients, You definitely want to see what their spacing is, but also their power, how much power they have in a particular area where they plan to be able to put a high-speed oven.
Good, thank you. All right, so next we're going to get into how to specify, and I'm going to rely here on these next couple of slides a lot, excuse me, a lot with Patrick, because as I said, he is out there day in and day out speaking to our customers. But really the first one is speed. And also one of the mistakes that we see people make is they go on to the web players and they'll make the assumption that all speed ovens are the same in terms of how fast they are. You know, they're used to going to Subway or into a Starbucks and seeing how quickly those items are warmed and browned. But then they'll end up looking for the least expensive one and they get it. And in some cases, they're disappointed because it's not as fast. So really understanding those demands on speed. And the way to think about it, we talked about the 2 or 3 technologies. If you don't have a priority of rapidly crisping and browning and where speed is really critical, then a convection microwave combination will likely work for that customer. Another example is if they have a desire to batch cook or use for prep versus on-demand a la carte, that is also a great place for convection microwave. But they are looking to cook with some speed, so they do want to be faster than conventional equipment. That's a great place to go with a convection or microwave. If they need that very rapid crisping and browning, or if they have minimal batch cooking and off-peak cooking, and it's really all about during peak periods, they need to crank out the menu items. They definitely want to move to the highest method of cooking, the fastest method of cooking, which is the impingement, convection, and microwave.
If I may inject here, Deb, you know, when you're talking to your clients, it really comes down to a few things. If there's bottlenecks or there's, you know, lines out the door, so to speak. So you want to definitely introduce or talk to them about utilizing the 3 different technologies, the impingement, the convection, and the microwave assist, where in a certain setting, like for example, a country club, they may not need, okay, to have those 3 technologies. Maybe they can get away with the convection and the microwave assist to be able to just speed up production a little bit, but we're really not worried about sacrificing service because we're doing more batch cooking with that.
And also in that case, like a country club where, you know, maybe it's the cafeteria after, you know, the folks are out golfing, is you're going to sit down and probably have a nice cold beverage, which you're going to enjoy for several minutes. So there's not that huge need for speed like there is if you're on your way to work in the morning, you go into a coffee shop and you want your hot breakfast. So that's a great point. Thank you. So we talked about speed. The second is the size, and this is where you choose the oven cavity size. So where you would go with a larger one, first of all, you have to have the space for it because the footprints are much larger and some have clearance. And in these cases, also batch cooking may be the primary use. When you move to a small oven cavity, that's really where the surface area of the food is smaller. So maybe you're talking about a 6-inch sandwich or 4 to 6 cinnamon rolls or chicken wings. And then also maybe space is limited, so they can't put a bigger cavity, a bigger footprint in there. They really need that 12 to 14 linear inch in there. Anything to add on this one, Patrick?
So in looking at clients who would typically be using a larger cavity type oven versus a smaller cavity type oven, the larger cavity is going to be, in some respects, like we said earlier, pizzas, if they're cooking a 16-inch pizza or a little bit larger, you know, type item, then the large cavity is going to take a little bit more time, but they're going to be able to get the desired result. Where in the smaller cavity, we're really trying to turn as many people through as possible. And this is, like Deb alluded to earlier in the presentation, is our coffee shops. Those are the folks that really could benefit from the technology to be able to help their business and generate more revenue utilizing something that requires little to no skill by just all icon based, pushing a button, putting the item inside the oven and having it ready to go in a minute or less.
Fantastic. Patrick, if it's okay, I would love for you to take this next slide because I think it really gets into a lot of those questions you were asking of your potential customers?
Sure, absolutely. So really just understanding the concept of the menu. So if it's a QSR, obviously it's built for speed. They're going to want items that are going to move out quickly. If you're looking at some type items like a chain and or a C store, they're going to want to have items that are going to go out in, a couple minutes or less. So when you're looking at, what items, to be cooked inside a high-speed oven, you can really, based on the menu, based on really understanding the concept and asking the right questions to your client, I think you're going to get a little bit more benefit as far as finding out if they're going to be cooking, fried type items. And, I will tell you, Deb, that I run into that on a regular basis. Well, I don't have a hood and I don't want to put a hood in, but I want to be able to cook French fries and I want to be able to cook, my typically fried type items, okay, inside a high-speed oven. You can do that, but you always want to, and I always recommend, and when you're talking to your clients, is you always want to let them know that they're going to need ovenable products. So ovenable products is the way to go with a high-speed oven, just because, it doesn't require a hood. It still has a catalytic converter that's built into it. So you want to make sure that high volumes of proteins and oils and so on and so forth, the throughput of it, sometimes you'll have challenges with that if they don't clean and maintain the oven cavity properly. And then kind of switching to the traffic projections, the thought process is always, looking at the customer counts and really seeing, what they're looking for. Are you looking to toast? Do you really need the microwave a lot of times? Can I shut the microwave off? I get that question a lot. Can I shut the microwave off? The answer is yes. You can shut the microwave off. Some people just want to use, a higher temperature and the convection and impingement to get that browning and crisping, especially with items like cooked sausage and things like that. So go ahead, Deb. The next. Okay, and then as far as the size, the speed of the oven and getting each item out, other equipment, menu items like we just talked about, bottlenecks, speed of service, lines out the door. When you see that, you always want to recommend the 3 different technologies. So, and then what we said earlier, I had said earlier, is the electrical. So the electrical is a big determiner. A lot of folks, especially right now, breweries that have never really been into, serving food to their patrons, now in some, depending upon, what municipality that they're in, a lot of times if you don't have food on the menu, you can't serve alcohol. So with that, a lot of breweries that have never had experience with food are now switching to this technology. So having them understand not only the footprint, but also the electrical requirements that are behind it. So when you're speccing these for your clients, you want to speak to that and definitely let them know, to make sure that they're able to run the ovens correctly. And then the accessories to kind of go along with it is really, like I said earlier, the menu is going to dictate the accessories. So depending upon if they want to steam some vegetables, for example, some manufacturers, we actually have lidded trays that they can steam in. If they want to get more crisping, like a taco shell, things like that. So you really want to be able to suggest the right accessories to kind of go along with it. And what I mean by accessories, it's not just those items like trays and bowls and molds to be able to cook, but also too, you want to highly recommend, a lot of manufacturers that are out there have cleaning, they have cleaning chemicals as well to kind of go along with their ovens, and you definitely want to utilize those. What we find is a lot of times folks with a high-speed oven aren't cleaning them as often as they possibly should. So we always want to reiterate, and you always want to reiterate to your clients, making sure that they're aware of that whole cleaning process, because that's a big part of ownership of a high-speed oven.
Great. Thank you. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to walk through some examples. We find a lot of interest in really understanding how the different heating technologies will impact the food. So in this case, we're looking at a speed oven that is convection, impingement, microwave, and radiant. And the questions you're going to see on every one of these next 3 pages, you always want to ask yourself is, how long do I have to get the visual appearance that I want? So if you have a pizza, maybe you want a little bit of browning on the cheese. If you want a sandwich, you want that nice toasting on the top, maybe grill marks. And that's going to come down to your traffic during peak periods and other items on your menu. So first, how long to get the visual appearance? And then second is, how long do I have to get to that core temperature for food safety and to make sure that that customer is getting what they expect? And then finally, what's my maximum cook time? So as we talked about at a country club, you have a few more minutes to play with. But if you are talking about those coffee shops, you know, really you want to get those people through the line as quickly as possible. So in this case, we want to talk a little bit about radiant heat. And radiant heat is good for some food products. And so the visual here shows kind of the radiant heat on the bottom, that's the red band. And then on the top, there's microwave kind of icons, which are coming from the top. So where radiant heat works really well is for pizza, for example, in this case, where you have the radiant heat on the bottom and it's coming up through the top. In a lot of times, however, the radiant heat is also used as a heating source. So where that doesn't work as well is on thicker items such as the frozen chicken tenders. So you're wasting a lot of energy to try to get that up to temperature with radiant heat, where in the case of that thicker product like a chicken tender, you're going to see on the next slide, there's probably better ways to get that to temperature and to get that crispy in the time allotted. Patrick, what other thoughts do you have on radiant heat?
Exactly what you said, Deb. You're really, for me, is focusing on the surface of the item. You know, not just pizza, but quesadillas. Like you had said earlier, flat items seem to work well with the radiant, but it's an expensive form of technology to be able to use. So unless you're really utilizing it to your benefit, you're probably going to want to look to more of a microwave type, you know, technology to be able to heat things a little quicker with the impingement and convection simultaneously happening at the same time to be able to get your crisping and your browning without utilizing the radiant. My recommendation is, depending upon, you know, what the customer's menu is going to look like and how many items they're actually going to be preparing, I would definitely recommend looking at the convection, impingement, and the microwave assist versus the radiant. I've had a lot more success with that than the actual radiant.
Okay, and that's a great segue into this slide, which is an example of a unit that has convection, impingement, and microwave. There's a lot of flexibility with these systems to adjust the power, right? You can do more or less impingement, more or less convection, more or less time, more or less microwave. So it really gives you a lot of flexibility. And what that allows you to do is not only deliver the heating and browning in a very efficient way, but everything you do really in that most efficient way, because you can dial up and down. So it works very well on pizzas. It also works very well on those thicker products like the chicken tenders.
Absolutely, where you don't have that flat surface to be able to work with. So with utilizing, like I said, the microwave to assist, and at some points, like you had said a second ago, is being able to, the ability to be able to adjust that. So you can adjust the convection, you can adjust the microwave, you can shut the microwave off if you want to. You have the ability to be able to do that. So it really comes down to the actual programming of it. Once the program is set and gold standard has arrived for a particular product, and that's where, you know, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but you know, you really want to call upon and utilize the resources that you have, you know, while you're working with a client, to reach out to your rep groups, okay? Reach out to them and have them help you with this. And then also reaching out to the manufacturer directly. But I think first steps first, I think reaching out and having a great rapport with your rep group, your local rep group, would be the way to go.
Yep, and I think you'll find that most rep groups and dealers are very open to bringing in food items from the customer and really helping them, to Patrick's point, get to that gold standard for their items. So the next group we're going to look at, we call these kind of indirect competition to high-speed ovens. These are things like the H-batch, the Ovention, the Vector, things like that. And what we see here is similar to the very first oven we looked at, is they're good for very small or very flat products because they really are convection impingement and they don't have that extra boost of energy, whether it's from radiant or from the microwave. So as you can see from the pictures, that it's on the pizza, again, it's going to work well, but I will tell you it's going to take a while to get that pizza done because it doesn't have that extra third technology to help drive it. And that's because it really relies on the convected heat to get to the core temperature of the food product. And that, as we all know, just takes a little bit longer. So unfortunately, the advantages are really lost if you do have a thicker product like the chicken tenders, because it's going to take so long for that convected heat to make its way through a frozen product. Patrick, anything on this slide you want to add?
No, exactly what you said, Deb. We're going to move it right along because we have a lot more to talk about, and we got some food to be able to prepare. So yeah, I think the slide speaks to itself, and what you had said was perfect information when our consultants that are out there are working with their clients. So thank you.
Good. Yep. And I think the only other thing I would add here is a lot of times people will see the bigger cavity and assume you're going to be able to produce more. But because it takes so long to cook things in these larger cavities, you may, on a per minute basis, be able to produce more in a very small speed oven cavity than you can in these convection impingement ovens, again, on a minute by minute basis. All right, common mistakes. I mentioned this earlier, is don't choose on price. Really understand what you're buying, understand the speed you need, understand, are you going to do batch versus on demand? Understand your need for fried foods, understand your need for toasted products. Take all that into consideration when you're choosing the right speed oven. Don't choose the lowest price and expect it's going to perform as fast as some of the others. Patrick mentioned there are lots of great reps, dealers, culinary assistants. Please tap into them, especially with speed ovens, because it is a new technology for a lot of customers. Really understand the throughput. How many of the quantities, how many toasted products, how many fried products, how many people coming through at peak periods. That's going to really help you identify not only how many speed ovens you may need, but in addition, what we find is generally you'll take a speed oven and you'll keep it at one temperature. So you'll keep it at 500, but then you'll change the fan speed, the amount of time you're cooking, the amount of microwave. You don't really want to spend the time going from 350 to 500 and back. So in those cases, if you think you need multiple ovens and you're cooking at different temperatures, take that into account when you think about throughput. We already talked about the fact that a larger cavity doesn't necessarily mean more production per cook cycle. So really do compare those non-speed ovens that are very popular to speed ovens when you're thinking about production. Patrick mentioned earlier, look for bottlenecks created by other pieces of equipment and consider maybe switching part or all of the menu items to that speed oven. And then really make sure you pay attention to power. And we're going to go on the next slide. We're going to talk about power input versus output, because not all spec sheets have output, but they have input. And in some cases, decisions are being made that may or may not be based in fact and performance. Utilities, we talked about understanding the available electric. If you can put these on a dedicated circuit, that's always a benefit. Making sure they're not placed next to water sources or environments that are high humidity, or next piece of equipment that are high humidity. And then also they don't work very well in generator powered situations such as food trucks. And as we said, tap into your rep and dealer resources. They can help you understand what menu items would be best served in the speed ovens, which speed oven makes the most sense, and then also help you choose those accessories and utensils that are really going to get you to that next step. Patrick, what else would you add to this screen?
Now, I think we've gone through a majority of the items that are on the screen right now, but really for me is utilizing your resources. And so, a lot of your clients, like Deb, said, they don't understand the technology. They're used to the traditional, microwave, toaster, those types of items. And so it's a little bit sometimes scary, okay, for somebody to really want to make, or a restaurant chain or a C-store, make the change to the technology because it's foreign to them. It's new, it's exciting, but once they've gone through a demo and, most of the rep groups that are out there, have a test kitchen that has the units like we have right here, you can come into the Performance Reps Northwest kitchen anytime you want and really test out anything you want. Bring your menu items into the location and you can dial in your cooking profiles and see if it really works for you and works for your food. But I can tell you, out of all the tests that we've done, 9 times out of 10, the customer is very surprised with the technology and they just want to learn more and see where that's going to fit into their operation.
Agreed. I think it's really fun showing speed ovens because it does surprise people. They think it's magic. Excellent. I'm going to have you walk the group through this slide, comparing different brands and some of the powers.
Sure. So, looking at brand A, B, and C, really understanding, like Deb said, a lot of times on spec sheets, you'll see a manufacturer that'll put, the output versus the input, and really understanding that sometimes the input is be able to push out the output a little bit faster. So when you're looking at, for example, grilled cheese, and I'm going to cook a grilled cheese in our MERRYCHEF E2S high power classic here in a minute, and you'll be able to see utilizing the technologies. Sometimes just because it says on a spec sheet, it looks like it has more power, doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get the food out any quicker or be able to do a turnaround time on this. And I know you're going to go through the seconds here in a few minutes, but the thought process for me is really understanding what you're reading and making sure that the gold standard is met. Just because it's got a higher microwave, or just because it has a larger wattage, doesn't mean that you're going to get the desired results you want in the speed that you want it prepared.
That's right. So where we have the green here, that is for that line item, it's obviously the highest number. So the assumption would be that, okay, that the higher number must mean that it's faster, that it's better. And so if you look at all of the inputs and outputs, for each brand, some people are surprised when they see the numbers. So brand C, which has the highest microwave power, is going to cook that, toast that grilled cheese in about 240 seconds. Brand B, which has the higher convection power and the mid-tier of microwave, is 180. And surprisingly, brand A is actually the fastest. And it's because, again, what you're trying to accomplish with the grilled cheese, with the toasting, is that convection fan output, and the RPMs is really what helps drive it in this case. And as we always said, this is about microwave assist. This isn't a microwave per se. And in this case, we had the lowest amount of microwave power. And that's all you need just to get the center of that sandwich and the cheese melting. But you need that convection fan to really give you your brownie. So on the next slide, I want to give you another example of input versus output. So on the upper left-hand corner, we see from a spec sheet for brand TE, where they talk about input. The problem is we can't really use input. We really have to look at output, because input to output is going to vary based on the balance of the technologies within each brand. So in this case, you can see the 3600 or the 3.6 for the heaters and blowers. But then if you look at brand M1, we have both the input as well as the output. So in this case, you see the convection heat is at 2200 watts. That's really the numbers you would want to compare across the different brands to make sure that you're getting close enough on what the true substitute is for that item. And just another pitch, your dealer and rep kitchens can really help get you there and bring in the menu items, and you can see how quickly things are cooking. You can adjust core temperature, you can adjust crispiness. All right. Next, we're going to talk very quickly about the air filtration for all of these units. And it's extremely important with speed ovens because they are so hot. They do have the magnetrons in a lot of cases if they have microwave power. So clean air and clean filters absolutely is necessary to ensure the efficient cooling of the components. And what you're going to find is if the filter is hard to reach and is not clean, then you're going to see the opposite occur, which means you're going to shorten the lifetime of the appliance and probably have very costly service repairs because the magnetron replacement can be quite expensive. So we have our competitive set here, and what I'll show you through animation is where the filters actually are. So for the majority of them, at least for the TurboChef and the Amana, the filters are in the back. And I would encourage you the next time you're in a test kitchen or in front of one of these is try to reach it, because it's very hard to reach your arm up and over and get it back to where the filter is. But more importantly, out of sight, out of mind. The two on the right, they are in the front, but they're unmonitored. And MERRYCHEF is the only one that has the filter right up front and center, and it has a magnet enclosure. So we can actually keep track of how many times that filter has been removed and cleaned. And so that is monitored, and that is a patent of MERRYCHEF. So a big benefit to increase the longevity of the unit. Patrick, anything to add on this slide?
Just to show you very quickly here, the air filter is magnetized. So on the E2S MERRYCHEF, it just snaps back into place and we're ready to go.
Fantastic.
So for me and working in the hotels and restaurants throughout my career, if you can't see the dirt, you can't clean the dirt. So the thought process is, if I can't see the air filter, I can't clean the air filter. And this is, like you had said earlier, gonna definitely, reduce the life of the high-speed oven, because it's not being cleaned. The lungs aren't being cleaned on a daily basis if possible.
Great point. Thank you. All right. So I just have a couple of slides. I want to talk about connectivity, and then I'm going to turn it over to Patrick so he can cook us some wonderful things in the MERRYCHEF there. So we all know that connectivity is more important than ever before. We see a lot of chains are really deploying it to save costs, to increase quality, et cetera. One of the things that Well-Built is undertaking is we're moving to what's called the common controller. So Well-Built units right out of the factory will be born digital and ready to connect, which is, we think, is really important. And we're only seeing increased importance and interest from customers. When we think about our connectivity, it's really about improving profitability. And we offer a cloud-based monitoring solution, or we can work with third-party monitoring solutions, which we know some of the chains are interested in. And the reason they're interested in third-party is a lot of them are monitoring, how much fuel they have in the tanks and things like that, that we just don't have in our wheelhouse yet. So when we look at the Kitchen Connect 5 modules, the thing that really drove this was pushing menus. So think about if you have, even if you're an operator with 30 locations and you want to do an LTO, right now, today, you'd have to have somebody take a thumb drive and go ahead and load that manually on each of those speed ovens. But with connectivity, you can have the head chef, once their LTO is tested and developed, they can actually send that down to the internet, and it will automatically load on every single one of those appliances. So it really saves a lot of time, as well as making sure that the item is even on the oven, right? If an employee forgets to do it. Service is also very important. As we talked about, we have a monitored air filter. And so we're able to look at that during service calls and remind the operator that, hey, you really need to clean these filters. It's going to help the longevity. We also have asset management, reporting, and quality. So we talked a lot already about menu management. These are the two that I think are probably the most critical for speed ovens. The fact that it saves time, and also the fact that you can send different LTOs to different groupings of stores. So if you have a chain with 1,000 locations, you might have that segmented into 5 or 6 different taste categories or taste segments. You're able to very easily do that with menu management. The other big benefit I see is the service management, the ability to look at remotely through the cloud, what are the issues, what are the error codes, and be able to provide some feedback to the operator so that they can make adjustments right there in the store. In addition, if a service call is needed, we can let the servicer know what we found and let them know what parts they should have. And then finally, from a preventative maintenance standpoint, you can monitor a lot of different metrics to make sure that the speed ovens are performing as expected. Patrick, any additions to menu management or Kitchen Connect or service management?
It's definitely the wave of the future, and that's why we're ahead of the curve. We're definitely, the focus for us is making sure that all of our equipment that's coming out, especially in the speed oven category, is going to be Wi-Fi enabled or Ethernet. So with that, Deb, like I said, we're going to move on down the line. I hope, like I said, I hope everybody has enjoyed the presentation. Deb, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Patrick. Take it away.
All right. So with that, let's have some fun. So before we start, let's take a look at our controller on our MERRYCHEF E2S before we start cooking a few items in it.
Gotta stop sharing. Nope.
All right.
Got a spoon.
So what we're going to do is we're going to prepare some breakfast and some lunch type items, but we're going to also answer some questions. I'll answer some questions along the way. So let's start with a basic item that you'd find in pretty much any coffee shop that's out there. Let's start with a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit sandwich, which we're going to prepare in 37 seconds. Once again, going back to icon driven, we're going to hit the icon. I'm going to place the product inside the oven utilizing my paddle. And in 37 seconds, we're going to have.
You're not even live. You're up. I'm just. Hey, Deb, could you stop sharing your screen? All right, now you're live.
So we're about to pull out a breakfast sandwich, cooked in 37 seconds.
Sure. It's not doing anything.
So there we have one breakfast sandwich done in less than a minute. We're going to move right into some cinnamon rolls, which are going to take us a minute and 35 seconds. We're going to place those inside the MERRYCHEF.
Can everybody see the product on the table? I can't, but if everyone else can, that's fine. Otherwise, you might want to hold it up and show the browning.
Can we see that?
That's better right there, maybe even a little higher.
How's that?
Good.
Perfect. Thank you, Deb. So now, do we have any questions that I could answer? Janelle, do we have anything?
Yep, we have a couple of questions for you, Patrick, actually. So could you speak to stacking options, if there are any?
Yes, the answer is, depending upon the model, there are stacked options that are available. The E2S, for example, classic, you can stack on top of each other. And then we also have stack kits that are available for some of our other models. Anything else?
Yes, one more question for you. If the air filter has been removed and not put back correctly, will the oven let you know?
Yes, it will. It will let you know. It'll actually tell you that you need to replace the air filter, and then it will make sure that the end user replaces the air filter before it continues to operate. So now we're going to pull out our cinnamon rolls, 5 cinnamon rolls in 1 minute and 35 seconds. Hot, bubbly, beautiful. Take a little bit of frosting, cream cheese frosting right over the top. So I think really anybody in a coffee shop, a cafe, a bakery would be able to produce something like this relatively easy.
Chef, one more question for you here.
Yes.
Has heat rejection been an issue, and are there any authorities driving the need for a hood?
Well, it depends upon, I mean, it's a good question, Tim, but it really depends upon the municipality. There's certain ones that are out there that will know, even if you show them the UL rated ventless certificate, they are going to require a hood, but in most cases not. We're not seeing that.
And then one other thing I'd like you to talk about is please touch on the real world comparisons of steaming options in a speed oven versus steaming in a ventless steamer, and then specific menu items if you don't mind.
Sure. So depending upon the products that we're preparing, anything from a asparagus to a Brussels sprout and so on and so forth, in a high-speed oven, you have the ability to be able to, utilizing a lidded tray, get some nice steaming to go along with it. A variety of different vegetables that you have the ability to be able to do relatively quickly, whereas in a traditional steamer setting, it might take you, 5 to 6 minutes to be able to steam something, whereas in a high-speed oven, you have the ability to be able to get it out in 1.5 minutes to less. Really depends upon the product. Did that answer your question?
Yep.
All right,
Perfect. So,
we got a couple more questions if you have
yeah, please.
for us. Okay. Any Ansel fire protection needs?
No, there is, great question. There is no really Ansel needs because of the UL rated ventless. You don't have that requirement. And in some cases, depending upon the model, I can't speak to all high-speed oven manufacturers, but on, for example, this MERRYCHEF E2S, there's 0 clearance. So when you're looking for clearance, you want to definitely put that into the equation as well too. How much clearance you have to be able to place a high-speed oven based on the space on the counter or on top of, like Deb said earlier, on top of a refrigerator and or freezer.
Great, thank you. We have a few more for you. Can raw products such as cinnamon rolls be effectively cooked to finish from a frozen state?
Yes, the answer is yes. And that's where I would definitely recommend, getting back to, Performance Reps Northwest. These guys do a great job out here. Really reach out and tap into your rep network. and dealer for that matter, but definitely you want to get the reps involved to come in and really test your products and find the gold standard before you actually go ahead and make that purchase of a high-speed oven.
Great, thanks, Chef. And then is the unit UL, or are the units UL certified 710B?
Yeah, I can answer that. Yes, they are. I just double checked it right now, and we can send you all the paperwork showing that.
Thanks, Deb. It looks like we have another question. Is that steaming in microwave only mode?
You use more microwave. The answer is it's a little bit more microwave typically, but I also use the convection as well. So the impingement is a great add, but I'm not really trying to get crisping and browning unless I'm trying to do some roasted Brussels sprouts or grilled asparagus spear, whatever, those types of items. So I would really focus a little bit more on the microwave utilizing that lidded tray.
Awesome. We had one more question for you, Chef.
Okay.
Can you shut off the microwave in the high-speed oven and cook only in the convection?
And the answer is yes. So if you want to shut the microwave off, you have the ability to be able to do that. And a lot of times, especially when you're like toasting items, like toasted bagels, you know, those types of items, a lot of times I don't even turn on the microwave. I just go straight convection and impingement to really get that browning and crisping that we're looking for.
Great, thanks. Well, I mean, great presentation by you, Deb, and Chef Patrick. Good information. Love to see the live cooking. And I think we're going to go ahead and close out your session and then head over to Tim McDougald.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, folks. Appreciate your time and watching our presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Deb.
All right, thanks, Patrick and Deb. That food looked great. It's really too bad we don't have smell-o-vision yet. You know, Emeril Lagasse talked about it 20 years ago. I think my childhood is a lie, right? Next up, we have Richard Young discussing the post-pandemic kitchen of the future. Richard is joining us today from Northern California. Richard is the director at the Frontier Energy Food Service Technology Center, an unbiased commercial food service research and training facility, formerly known to most industry insiders as Fishnick. Richard focused most of his efforts on translating Frontier Energy's 33 years of food service research into practical information. And last but not least, he's also the creator and author of the online food service energy efficiency expert training and certification program known as FE3. Richard, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Tim. And I'm hoping everybody is now seeing my screen. Thumbs up on that one. If not, just let me know. Janelle will let me know right away. Thank you, Janelle, for inviting me. Hey, Patrick and Deb, what a great presentation on high-speed ovens, speed cooking, rapid cook ovens. We've been studying these at the Food Service Technology Center for, I don't know, 20 plus years, and it's just amazing how that technology has developed. And yeah, and I've seen so much stuff, but I still learn more from you today, and I'll pay you back because I actually have a cool little example of using a high-speed oven. But what I really want to talk about today is this notion of decarbonizing the commercial kitchen with energy efficient equipment. Okay, I'm an energy efficiency nerd, technical guy, and in the utility world, and so you're going to hear a lot about decarbonization. That is a big thing in the future, particularly for school districts that you might be working with, for consultants, or high-tech B&I companies that you might be working with, or municipalities or governments. We're moving now one level higher from just trying to do LEED buildings and sustainability up into this notion of decarbonization. But there's another, that sounds all really, very utility government-like, decarbonizing the commercial kitchen. Really what we're going to be talking about today is, the post-pandemic kitchen of the future. We're going to get past this pandemic at some point. The industry is going to surge forward, and we need to do just what Deb and Patrick were talking about. Think smart about our kitchens. How do we get more modular? How do we think about that next level? How can we evolve so we do more production in smaller spaces with less labor, food safety, repeatability? How do we bring in the digital? It's time for that to happen. Because as we know, many of our built kitchens today have not evolved in decades. So it's time to move forward on that stuff. So let's play around here. And I am Richard Young. I have been at the Frontier Energy Food Service Technology Center for, I think, 31 years now. I've been there so long that I'm now just an avatar. I'm no longer even three-dimensional. I'm just this person on the screen. Actually, a little fun, Janelle had some people make that avatar for me, and I laughed about it at first, and Janelle, it's been the most fun thing anybody ever made for me, so I appreciate that. Before we get rolling, for those of you, I have a feeling a lot of you already know something about the Food Service Technology Center, but if there's some folks that don't, I'm just going to give you a really, really quick background. We're located in Northern California in San Ramon, which is just a little bit outside San Francisco. And we have a brick and mortar facility that is both a lab and a training center. And the laboratory is really the foundation of what we do. That's what we started all those years ago, like 34 years ago, we started the Food Service Technology Center. And our lab has two major components. One major component is the kitchen ventilation testing side, where we can do heat gain testing, we can do kitchen hood testing, all kind of cool stuff in that room. And then outside of that, we have a big a big appliance testing lab, where we bring in equipment and apply standardized test methods to that equipment and generate numbers that are very fair and accurate and allow us to create things like the Energy Star program, or in California, the California Energy Wise rebate program. So we're engineering nerds, we're very strict, we're an ISO accredited lab, and the information that we generate, we feel like is very useful to people, you designer folks out there, if you're willing to pick it up and look at it and use that. It's given you knowledge that you would not have had otherwise. Another thing that we love to do, because the lab is great, but the lab is very sort of perfect and surgical. Out in the real world, human beings do all kind of crazy stuff. So we like to do a lot of on-site energy monitoring, field studies. If we can crawl underneath it, behind it, if we can stick something on it or wrap it with temperature sensors, we love to do that. And we've studied all manner of appliances out in the big world. Hundreds of appliances and hundreds of sites, and we have a lot of knowledge now of how things work in the big world. So we like to use that field side and the lab side to balance things out. We also get out and work with our customers. We work with a lot of consultants. We've worked on consulting projects, everything from the smallest little local taco place all the way up to big projects like the Apple campus. We also like to get out and do energy surveys. Right now, we can actually do virtual site surveys. If you guys have a site someplace and you need for us to help you out to do some kind of, if it's a project and they're about to do a retrofit, or it's a new place and they're trying to cut their energy bill, give us a knock on the door, because we really try to apply our knowledge. That's the notion. We are nerds, we create information, but it's no good unless we can apply it. And then the fourth thing that we really love to do is workforce education and training. And that's really what we're doing today. We're sharing that knowledge with professionals and food service operators and designers and everybody at all levels of the industry, so we can try and lift all boats. And one way that you can follow these classes, whether you're in California or not, you can go to the California Energy Wise website. And we've been doing, this is all the California utilities working together. We've been doing a lot of classes, a lot of online classes. We are recording things, broadcasting them. So just make a note of this, caenergywise.com. It's a great resource for you. And in fact, you can get more FCSI credits for many of these classes. So if you want more CEUs, go out and grab these classes. And once again, thanks to FCSI for inviting us to speak today. And I think you're getting a half a credit for my section. So woo, I feel good about that. You saw that logo, Fishnick. Most of the people out in the big world know us as Fishnick because our website, fishnick.com. Food Service Technology Center, big string of words, not easy to remember, but everybody seems to remember Fishnick. So come visit us on Fishnick. If you're like at the end of this presentation, you can't remember anything, you want to drop me an email, if you go to Fishnick, you'll find me. You'll find my information. And I just want to summarize all of what we do at the Food Service Technology Center with a mission statement. We came up with this recently, and it just really stuck. Okay, so in the midst of all this notion of decarbonization and sustainability and energy and all the evolution of what's going to happen in our energy systems and our buildings going forward, there's a lot of churn and there's a lot of push towards electrification. We have to have electric. Oh, we have to have gas. There's all this kind of stuff, and we realized at the Food Service Technology Center that we're fuel agnostic. We're not trying to push you for one fuel or the other fuel. And we're really mission driven, and our mission is to cut carbon. We don't care if the fuel is unicorn tears. If it's cutting carbon, that's what we're down for. And cutting the carbon it's a win-win, because not only is that what your corporate and your other customers are wanting, your school districts and your B&I customers and all these kinds of folks are wanting decarbonized buildings. It is also rapidly going to become the law in lots of states across the United States. Decarbonization is on the legal books. You're going to have to move in that direction. But the cool thing is, when you cut carbon, you're also cutting energy use, you're saving money, and you're keeping your clients in business. It's a win-win situation. So fuel agnostic and all about cutting carbon. So let's talk a little bit about equipment choice, integrated facility design, how all this stuff kind of fits together in this notion of decarbonization. And if we had more time, we'd pull in, bigger and bigger case studies and try and make this a design charrette. We'd have some fun here, but we have a very limited time. So I'm going to look at a little case study of a restaurant that we worked on called Saltcraft. Saltcraft is an owner-operated, chef-driven concept. It's close to us in Northern California. If you come visit us after the pandemic, we'll take you over there for lunch. Saltcraft is owned by Chef Matt. Chef Matt is a Culinary Institute trained chef who cut his teeth 10 years in New York with all the top restaurants, right? And he came out here. He was an executive chef at a big winery. He wants to start his own restaurant. So Chef Matt put all in on this restaurant, every penny he had, every moment of his life. This is a big deal. And Saltcraft is an incredible restaurant. Chef Matt was really reaping the rewards until the pandemic came. And actually, he's pivoted quite nicely during the pandemic. He's doing to-go and take-out and that stuff. He's a baker as well. Incredible bread. But let's get back to the story of Chef Matt's Kitchen. Being sort of a traditionally trained chef and starting his own small business, like any other chef, with not lots of money on the front and really no knowledge of equipment other than, I can cook, this on this piece and that on that piece. Chef would have gone out to the local supply place and just gotten himself basically low-cost traditional equipment. The traditional gas pieces, he would have had some convection ovens and a griddle and a range and a stock pot range, a steamer, holding cabinet on the electric side. It would have been low cost. He wouldn't have been thinking twice about it, throwing it in. Now, from a carbon standpoint, that kitchen, and Chef Matt's doing lunch and dinner. That kitchen would have produced about 37, almost 38 tons of carbon a year, okay? Which is, tons, that's a lot. Who can bench press 37 tons? That's just one little cook line in one little restaurant. And his operating cost would have been around, almost $12,000 a year. So that's kind of the baseline. That's our base case, nothing happening. Now, as I've mentioned, we work for the utilities. We've been involved in Energy Star and the rebate programs up in the Pacific Northwest. There are a lot of rebate programs that you really should try and take advantage of. A lot of those utilities have modeled their programs off of the California program, so it's the same data. So it's really valuable information. If you can get your clients just to take that first step and level up to, the efficient appliances, they can reap significant benefits. So in our kitchen here, we have the same lineup, but it's just more efficient. These are Energy Star appliances. These are rebate qualified. So now our carbon emission is about 25 metric tons, and our fuel cost is almost $8,000 a year. And if I compare that to my base cost, I've cut 11 tons of carbon, that's a chunk out of this little kitchen. And I've cut my operating costs by almost $4,000. That's like a third, just by going out and buying the rebate qualified equipment, which, by the way, I'm getting paid, several $1,000s to do that. So it's a win-win situation. And for a small operator like Chef Matt, $4,000 is $4,000 in the pocket, right? That's money he gets to spend. At 5% profit, he'd have to sell $80,000 worth of food to make $4,000. So that's a good deal, right? And that's easy. But we went a whole nother step further. And once again, this is kind of what Deb and Patrick were talking about. Chef Mark actually is friends with our consulting chef at the Food Service Technology Center, Chef Mark Dusler. So Chef Matt came in, he worked with Mark. They used our Try Before You Buy program. If you have projects down in the PG&E area, please contact us, get your clients in working with us. We can do it virtually right now. When the pandemic's over, the best way is to do it side by side. So Chef Matt worked with us for, I don't know, almost 6-8 months, bringing his recipes in. Up where you are, once again, Patrick mentioned this, Performance has a great test kitchen. And when you're talking about equipment that is expensive, first off, it's nice to test drive it, just to begin with. But when you're talking about equipment that is both expensive and a shift in technology, then it's really important to come in with your menu items and try that out. And we've had a huge amount of success with people coming in who, cooked a traditional food in one process, and it's just got to be done in a steamer and a clay pot, et cetera, et cetera. And then they come in and they try the combination ovens, and wow, I can change things. I can change my process. So it's really important to get your hands on this equipment and try it out. And when you do that, then you get some confidence, you get some feel for what you can do, and you may get some benefits you never thought of. So we worked with Chef Matt, and we basically took him towards our fast, small, flexible, energy efficient kitchen of the future. And so what we did, let's see if I can get my mouse back here. There we go. And my magic pointer. So some of the things that we did was we replaced those. As I said, Chef Matt's he's a baker. He does some incredible bread. It's stunning. And, and what he told me one day was, as a baker, as a bread baker, he would have to create a recipe that would work on a rainy day, a dry day, a hot day, a cold day. He'd have to have this recipe that had all this bandwidth, because when he was working with these convection ovens, they would have personality. And so he'd need to make sure that this recipe worked. He came over and he started using, we hooked him up with a half-size rack oven, a very efficient half-size rack oven, and a combination oven. And he said, Richard, I'm getting the same output every time. No matter what the day is, I'm getting the same product, which is incredible. So now I can do, instead of one recipe that works, in every situation, I can do 10 recipes. He was thrilled by that. Once again, Chef Matt is a chef. He's not an energy guy. He could really give a hoot about energy and carbon. he's thinking labor, and he's thinking, product repeatability, and he's high-end chef. So he's really serious about his food quality. The other thing that we did was we moved Chef Matt from a traditional range top into a 6-hob induction unit that sits on top of a refrigerated base. Okay, and then you say, well, what about that range oven there, Richard? Let's see. Let's do this. What about that range oven that everybody uses for finishing? And warming plates, but most finishing typically. Well, we replaced that with that MERRYCHEF high-speed oven. And so what Chef Matt is doing now, he's thinking outside the box. He's using the equipment in different ways. And instead of trying to finish in this range oven, he's now creating products in the, one of his signature products is a chicken. So let's see, where did my mouse go? There it is. He's creating this chicken. He's cooking it most of the way in his combination oven. Then he's holding it. And then when people order it, he rapid finishes it in that high-speed oven. So Patrick and Deb, there's another application you hadn't thought about. We're talking a sort of fine dining situation where we're replacing the range oven with the high-speed oven. As far as the induction goes, once again, traditional chef and all this kind of stuff, it took them exactly one day to fall in love with the induction, and you couldn't pry it out of their hands now. As soon as they figured out where the knob settings were, they were great, because at the end of the day, they just wiped stuff down. Chef Matt, I totally lucked up, and I ended up at the airport one day, and I was flying to Austin and he was flying to Austin. We got on the same plane, and for 2 hours, he just talked about labor savings. Once again, he doesn't really know his money savings because he didn't have a before and after. We model out the money savings for him, but he knows labor savings. And he said, Richard, we close our lunch shift at 3 p.m. We can be slammed right up to 3. And I'm expecting it to take 45 minutes for my staff to get out, and they're cleaned up and out the door in 20 minutes, regardless of how slammed we are, because you can hit the You know, you clean the filter on the MERRYCHEF, wipe down the inductions, hit the self-clean on the combi oven, and boom, you're out of there. So this kitchen is solving lots of problems. It is cutting carbon, it is cutting cost, it is cutting labor, and it gives him huge flexibility in his menu application, and he's doing it all in a smaller space. So it's really a win-win situation, right? So this is the kitchen that Matt actually ended up with. He's got the combi, he's got a pasta cooker, griddle, he's got that half-size rack oven, and we stuck with gas on this because in PG&E's territory, the lowest cost fuel at the current time, the lowest cost to operate that equipment is gas. And Matt is a small business person, so we said, hey, we want to give you the lowest utility bill possible. So we chose gas for that, and then on the electric side, of course, he's got his induction cooktop and his high-speed oven. So let's look at his carbon now. Now we're down at 13 metric tons a year of carbon, and our fuel cost has been cut by 2/3. Now we're down at $4,000 a year, okay? So we walked into a small business operator. We took one of his most pesky costs and chopped 2/3 off, and he ended up saving on the labor, has a more comfortable, more productive, more flexible kitchen. That's a win-win. If there's a, bullet point aha moment for every designer out there, this is what we need to shoot towards. This is what we need to be doing. And if there is one challenge, I think, for all the designers moving towards this, it is we need to educate our clients that this exists. All too often, the client does not know, or even the food service operators, the food service management companies don't know this exists. They don't know that you can move to this kitchen in the future. So we need to start educating and letting people know that these options are out there. So if we now look at our savings versus base, we've cut 24 tons of carbon and $7,700 off the energy bill. That's pretty amazing. Now, let's say, because there are ordinances that have been passed, something like 30 municipalities around Northern California now have passed what they call all electric reach codes, which means that for new construction, new restaurants, new buildings, new high tech, skyscrapers, whatever, there will be no gas lines. They are mandating that these new construction businesses be all electric. And a lot of these projects won't come online for 1-2 more years, right? So it gives us a little time to start thinking about this and moving towards this kitchen of the future. But this is happening. It's going into law. So it's not something that we can just say, well, what the heck, it won't happen. It is happening. So the notion is that we need to be thinking about this and getting ahead, as the design community, as the equipment community, and thinking how we move towards this kitchen in the future. Because we can only do this, these electric reach codes, we can only match this if we're really thinking ahead and producing this kitchen of the future, okay? So if Matt had gone all electric, his carbon would have dropped pretty dramatically. Right now he's down to 5.2 tons of carbon, but actually his fuel cost goes up because electricity is a more expensive fuel than natural gas. Now these numbers are Bay Area numbers. These are San Francisco carbon and energy cost. It would be different up in the Pacific Northwest. You need to model each situation out. So I know that's a lot in the head. Richard, you gave me these 4 models. Let's summarize these. Let's look back at this. So our base efficiency, had Matt just done what everybody else does, and what just happens in an awful lot of kitchens right now to this day, kind of put in that 1960s kind of basic efficiency kitchen, his cost to operate $11,000, and his carbon up here, I'm matching the carbon over against this line, right? On this side is my cost to operate, and on this side is my carbon. So $11,000 to operate, my carbon up there at 40 tons, something like that. If I can just get Matt to take my rebates, take the money, take the rebates, okay? We've cut 1/3 off. This is a win-win. If everybody walked away today and just committed to this is a great place because we've cut operating costs. And darn, we've cut a bunch of carbon off of there. In fact, we've cut enough carbon to make most of the state's 2030 carbon goals. Here's where Matt ended up. This is really the sweet spot, right? We analyzed everything, we modeled it, we got him his lowest cost to operate, and his carbon's pretty doggone low. Look at that. Base case down to here. That's what we really need to do effective, cost-effective decarbonization where everybody wins. That kitchen pays for itself. Matt made money while cutting carbon. But if you'd wanted to take one step further, which, as I said, a lot of your high-tech corporate customers do want to do this, or your school districts, we can get our carbon down really low now, but our cost to operate did go up from that hybrid kitchen, and that's the thing to think about. But the coolest notion about this is that this cost to operate, even though it is higher than our, higher than our hybrid kitchen, it's still lower than the base case gas. So I could have, essentially, if I had a completely clean energy mix here, I could have zero carbon. I could be all the way down. I can go from here to here right now today in an awful lot of the, utilities around the Bay Area and some in the Pacific Northwest. We can get to zero carbon, and I can do that and still save money off of my sort of energy guzzler carbon generating kitchen, right? But that can only be done if we're thinking ahead. If we just try to swap one for one gas to electric, you're going to crash. This number is going to be twice as high. It's going to be $22,000. Okay, so this is where design comes in, and I like to speak to your entrepreneurial spirit as designers. This is a value add. This is a thing to start thinking about, to going to your customers and saying, hey, we need to think about your cook line and how we're going to take that to the future. And let me help you. I'm a food service expert. I'm a consultant. Let me move you forward with that, because it can be done. So if we're summarizing some of this stuff, reality number one is full electrification is not currently economically feasible for many commercial kitchens, particularly if they're small independent kitchens. I'm hesitant to push a small independent operator into that, a more expensive fuel mix at this time. And as I have been talking to municipalities, cities, and building codes people and the Energy Commission, I'm trying to stress that if they want to move towards this all electric notion, they're going to have to do something for these small operators. Now, for your big, your big high tech customers, I don't worry so much about this. Their energy cost in their kitchen is probably, a drop in the bucket compared to the food that they're just giving away to to their employees every day, right? Not such a big thing there. For your big high tech customers, it's a more a notion of us getting in and working with them and proving that the equipment is there and working with them just to get that kitchen of the future. But as I said, significant economic policy, grid system changes are needed to truly create effective electrification and move towards decarbonization. But here's another reality. I see this as the golden age of high efficient gas equipment, because significant decarbonization is achievable immediately by upgrading to energy efficient gas equipment. Stunning carbon reductions, 30%, 40%, 50%. We've done the field studies. It's a slam dunk. And not only does that cut carbon, those pieces of equipment pay for themselves and they perform better. They produce more food. So as I'm thinking this next decade, 15 years, 20 years, golden age of high efficiency gas equipment, because it's low cost and it cuts carbon like right now today. It's a win-win. So that's another option. Okay, so here's this electric challenge. Electric appliances can cost significantly more to operate, so we need to design smart in order to achieve decarbonization. So we talked about the appliances, but we have to think of everything from the countertop appliances up to the exhaust hoods. And this is a study that we just recently did for the California Energy Commission. So if you want to get more information on this one, let's get the mice. There we go. You can see the URL down here at the bottom. Fishnick.com CEC plug, and you can see how much you can save. Like, here's my efficient coffee maker, here's my inefficient coffee maker. I can cut my energy use by 2/3 on stuff like that. Espresso machines, 50%, hot food wells, 1/3, hot plates, huge amounts by going to an induction hot plate, panini presses, soup wells, warming cabinets, everything. Massive savings on countertop, but that counts because we've got loads of countertop equipment. So as designers, don't ignore that. And then, as I said, from the smallest to the biggest, you have to pay attention to your exhaust hoods. Massive energy use in those hoods. What we have found across a wide spectrum of different building types, as you see at the bottom here, from the cafeteria over to the quick service restaurant, we're really cutting our power in using demand control kitchen ventilation. We're cutting the power needs by 57%. I'm coming in and telling you, if you properly apply this technology that really works, is off the shelf, and is actually kind of nice, because when it spins down, it's quieter in the kitchen. You properly apply this, it cuts the energy bill in half. That's amazing. I'm cutting your cost to operate in half. That's pretty good stuff, right? Once again, though, you do need to think as designers, you have to apply design. Now, one thing that we're seeing that I think is a challenge, and we're working on this right now, is heat pump water heaters. And you're going to hear more about this because these are necessary in that all-electric kitchen. And the codes people, the people that are writing this out, the Energy Commission people are all expecting heat pump water heaters to do everything. And for your residents right now, heat pump water heater in your house, great, no problem. It's a slam dunk. But in a restaurant and a commercial food service operation, we don't have any case studies on heat pump water heaters. We're not sure how they're going to work. We have ideas of how to apply them, but we're not totally sure how they work yet. And so we're talking to everybody. We need to do some case studies. Successful use of heat pump water heaters will require a change in plumbing design. That's the other thing. You can put these things in, but if you're going to have to put, a bunch of them in or a lot of storage, unless you start looking at how you design the plumbing in your kitchens. It seems boring, but it's actually a kind of cool subject. You're going to need some decentralized water heating, and you're going to need heat recovery dish machines. That is going to be the score for us, heat recovery dish machines. And there's a bonus. There's a lot of waste heat in the commercial kitchen. And what these heat pump water heaters do is they like to grab that waste heat, right, and turn that into hot water. So that's good. And then what you get back out is the byproduct is some cold air. So we may be pulling waste heat off of our dish rooms. We may be pulling waste heat off of our walk-in coolers. But keep your eyes on heat pump water heaters and keep checking in with us because that's going to be a key in our design. So let's take all this now, tie it together. In order to get to this kitchen of the future, we have to do behavior change. Oh my God, we have to change the behavior and habits of human. There is probably nothing more challenging than trying to change behavior. So what are we going to do? We're going to take it a step at a time. Right? Little bitty changes. We're going to work on small projects. We're going to affect this and that. And we're going to start by talking about some things like, product over process. So some of the things we've run into as roadblocks in these projects is somebody says, I want to cook a wok food. I want to cook Chinese food, and it's just not traditional unless I have a full-size gas wok, right? Well, we now have a full-size induction wok in our demo space, and we're going to prove that that induction wok will do just fine. And I know I've been to Shanghai. I went to the Hotel X conference in 2013 with Robin. Robin, hi if you're listening, and came back with pictures of full-size induction woks, right? And what we need to do is focus on the product. Okay, can I get the same product out of this induction wok that I'm getting out of my regular gas wok? If so, then great. Let's push the process aside. Let's not get hung up on the process. It's what we're already doing with combination ovens. Everybody out there is familiar with combination ovens, and we've made that shift, right? Then we got to do education, demonstration, training. We're talking a $900 billion industry. Somehow we've got to start pushing this information forward. And hats off to Janelle and performance reps for hosting this today and for FCSI moving this forward. We need more of this. We need to share this information because this is going to unlock a lot of business for all of us. We have to also look for those hidden barriers. I was talking to Tara at Rika, and Tara, if you're on the line, hats off to you. And she was talking to me about contracts in some of these B&I situations where the food service operator, the company, food service management company, sometimes has to buy the equipment per the contract. Well, what are they going to do? They're going to buy the lowest cost equipment. They're not going to necessarily go for the kitchen of the future. They're not going to think outside the box. So we have to start looking for those barriers and finding ways to work around that. And then we have to recognize and monetize these non-carbon benefits like labor savings, like comfort. And there are Cal-OSHA comfort regulations that are coming down the pike. I think right after the pandemic, we're going to see temperature limits in kitchens. We need to think about safety. My induction cooktop, it's very hard to burn the kitchen down. I can't put a napkin on it and burn the place up. And then we need to think about maintenance and start looking at that. So this is how we're going to change behavior. We're going to change it a step at a time. It's going to be education and case studies, and we're going to end up with a really much better, kitchen. So I have Janelle is going to help me do some polling here, and so let's play with this and have some fun. Janelle, is that
Here we
that's
go.
still good to go? Okay.
Yep.
So I had 3 questions for you. First one: do you have a clear knowledge of what utility energy efficiency incentives are available for food service projects and how to find them? And by clear, I mean, like absolutely yes. I know right what website to go to and how to find these rebates. I've done that before. Somewhat, you might say, maybe I kind of know. I know there's some rebates. I've never tried it, or no, I have no idea what the rebates are. So answer that one for me, if you will. And Janelle, I'm not sure how that will fly. Will I see the answer, or?
Nope, I will launch it here in just 1 second. I'm going to end the poll right now, Richard.
Okay.
And I'm going to launch the results.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, so some somewhats, which is kind of what I expected. Like you know that there's something there, and maybe it's there, I think about it, but you can't walk right over and just pick that rebate up. We need to have sometime in the very near future, absolute 100% absolute yes. That's the way we need to be, because the rebates are both a, it's money, it's driving the market, right? It's driving change, but it's also an educational tool. That's how we educate people about combination ovens, is giving them a rebate for it. Okay, second polling question. Do your clients know that they can substantially reduce their energy use, / carbon / cost to operate with efficient equipment and smart kitchen design? Okay. And once again, I'd underline that, do they know that they can substantially reduce? Everybody's like, yeah, I know some efficiency, we'll do it, but do they really understand? Do your clients, if you showed them these slides I showed you today, would they be like, holy smokes, cut my energy use by 2/3? So we got a lot of no's, we got some somewhats, and a few absolute yeses, which is once again, kind of what I expected, right? It's our goal. We got to get to 100% absolute yes, because as soon as the clients know this, they're going to come to you and say, design me the energy efficient kitchen. Give me that kitchen of the future. And then the last one, this is really curiosity for me, because I kind of want to know what the market's looking like. Are your clients asking you about all electric kitchens? And yeses and nos on this one's an easy one. It's a yes or no. People are either asking you, or they're like, nah, I'm not bothered. And I have a feeling, like those of you working in the B&I world, you're getting some yeses, and those working in, independent restaurants, full service restaurants, schools, maybe, I don't know. So let's see what our poll says. Yeah, and kind of a half and half, yes and no. That's kind of what I guessed, right? And what I can tell you is that yes number is going to go up, because across the United States, once again, states, I think it was a year ago in May, there was one state in the United States that had a clean energy, zero carbon goal in its laws. And by August, there were 9. And then there are another, 10 states that are, and utilities as well, that are out there with clean energy goals on their books right now. So it's something to focus on, and for us to keep moving forward. And with that, question time.
Yep. Hey, Richard, you got a handful of questions. We're short on time, so I'm going to pose a couple of them, and then the ones we can't get to, I'll send them your way, and maybe you can send me an email response and I'll share it.
That's a deal. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, let's start with the first one. Does electricity in general contribute more successfully to decarbonization than natural gas? In other words, a perfect world, if all equipment in a kitchen would be electric, would that be a better thing?
This is a great question, and it really depends on where you are. So if you are at my house right here in Oakland, and you had a 100% clean energy mix coming through, which I can do, my local utility, there's PG&E, which is transmitting the energy to my house, but I'm actually buying my energy from East Bay Community Energy. And they have a 100% clean, 100% sustainable energy mix, which means I can buy zero carbon electricity. And in that case, if my house was all electric, I would be generating zero carbon from that. So that's a good case. But if I was back in my birthplace, back in Memphis, Tennessee, it's TVA, there's some coal plants still online, there's a lot of natural gas plants. In that case, if I went all electric, I might actually be producing more carbon than I would if I had natural gas. So it's very important, depending on where you are, to model it out and to do that analysis, because it's still not uniform everywhere in the United States. Great question.
Okay, Richard, I'm going to do one more quick question, and then again, we'll have to follow up with the others. But are you also studying the construction costs as well in your financial models? We are seeing a significant increase in costs to build all electric, as the cost to build the electric infrastructure is higher, especially if you push the load higher than existing infrastructure.
Yeah, and once again, this is a really good question. Somebody asked me about this the other day, and I don't have numbers on it. What we do know is if you're looking at a retrofit situation, which I have a feeling that may be some of what you're looking at, retrofit situation, now I'm going back to an existing panel and I'm trying to up this panel, and maybe that leads to a transformer increase, and I got to run conduit and stuff in an existing building. That I think is pretty cost prohibitive. If I'm in a new situation, a brand new kitchen, and I'm going to go all electric, and I'm looking at that kitchen of the future, the first thing I'm going to do is really look at my processes, and I'm going to try and shrink that exhaust hood, and I'm going to try and shrink my cook line footprint. And then I'm really going to plan on how I use the electricity. And yes, I'm going to have a larger panel, and I'm going to have more conduit and cabling, but now I've gotten rid of all of the plumbing part for my gas installation and a big gas meter that sits outside. But I do not have case studies sort of one for one in new construction. And I'm expecting some of that information to start being generated. We've been working with some other people on the code side who were trying to generate some of this information and figure it out. But it's still on the very front end. And I'd love to hear more about this. If you've got some numbers you want to share with me, that would be great, because I learn from you as much as I hope you learn from me. And with that, I will say thanks. And Janelle, send me those questions, and thanks for your time, and a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks so much, Richard. A lot of great information. Like I said, a lot of great questions. So we'll definitely follow up on those. And yeah, thanks so much to you.
Great. Everybody, take care. And
All right.
let me stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to the bosses here.
Thanks a
Thanks
lot,
so
Richard.
much.
Great presentation. And everybody else, make sure you ask Richard about FE3 and additional FCSI CEU opportunities. And thank you to Patrick and Deb as well for their sessions as well. Great to have you on, Richard.
Thanks.
This concludes session 3. I invite everybody to take a quick break and join us at 2:30 for our final session of the day titled Beyond the Dishes. Hear how COVID-19 has affected dish room design, and also join us for our FCSI Pacific Northwest chapter meeting. See you guys in a bit.